That's a great question, and I actually did put a lot of research and thought into what I was going to purchase. I don't buy a tractor every year or every 5 years. This tractor's going to have to do me a long time, so I wanted to get something that, I knew was going to work and was going to fit in where I needed it to fit in. Now, when I decided I wanted to buy another tractor, I set a limit on price. I said, this is how much I'm willing to spend. Whatever I can get for this amount of money is what I'm going to get. And I was colorblind. I looked at everything. I looked at 4440 John Deeres, which I would have loved to have. They just weren't in my price range. If I did find one in my price range, it had 14,000 hours on it. If you got to go into transmission on one of them, you're going to spend some money, it sounds like, from my research. I looked at TW Fords. I like blue tractors. They're fine. Parts availability, maybe. Nothing wrong with a TW. I just never found one. Looked at some Allis Chalmers. I don't know a whole lot about Allis Chalmers, so that kind of steered me away from that. Looked hard at Cases, and when Case International merged, like a 1896 or 2096, I think they're fine tractors, especially with the Cummins motor in them. But there again, if you have to go into the power shift on one of those, it's some big money. I went and drove a Magnum down in the eastern part of North Carolina. Really nice tractor. Probably a little bit more tractor than what I really needed, but it was super nice. It was in my budget. I called and told the man, I said, look, I can make you an offer, but I think you can get more than what I'm willing to offer you. So just, keep it. And if you don't sell it in the next 2 weeks, I might call and, try to buy it. Well, he ended up selling it. That's fine. That's what I didn't want him to think I was trying to lowball him. Whites, I really like white tractors. Nothing wrong with white. Again, parts availability, and they're not as common around here as some other models like an International or something like that. I didn't really look at any Fergusons because to me in the 80s, Massey Ferguson was kind of not their best effort. I think in the 90s they got a lot better, but most of the tractors built in the 90s were out of my budget. A lot of people ask why I didn't go buy a new tractor. New tractor, 150 horsepower now is $180,000+. To me, that's just stupid. All I'm going to use that tractor for that I bought really is to pull the planter with, so it's going to work 2 weeks a year. Probably going to clean it up and wax it. It might get driven in a parade or two around here, maybe a tractor ride. Might pull a gravity wagon or something with it this fall, but it's not a tractor that's going to get used every day. I don't farm enough to buy a new tractor. It would be not a smart business move to buy a brand new or newer tractor for what I'm doing. I also looked really hard at the 88 series Internationals, 5088s, 5288s. I come really close to buying one. They were in my price range. But the problem is there again, if you got to go in the transmission on those, you're going to spend some money. I do all my own mechanicking. Other than air conditioner work, we pretty much do all our own, repairs and everything. So if I'm going to have to work on it, I want something that's pretty simple to work on. Parts availability for those old International 86s is really good. You can about order everything on the tractor from High Capacity. And, I can overhaul that tractor for probably $2,500. The rebuild kit's probably $1,500. Costs $1,000 to get the head checked. I can rebuild it and, not have a whole lot in it. Do it all myself. So, it's just something that I felt like the 86 series fit the bill for what I was doing. Are they the perfect tractor? No, absolutely not. Do they shift perfect? No, they don't. But for what I'm doing with it, pulling a planter, messing around here, maybe pulling a gravity wagon, it's all I need. I'm not going to sit in it 8 hours a day for 6 months out of the year. It's probably going to get, maybe 100 hours a year, 150 hours a year at the most, and that's it. So that's what I went with. I put a lot of research into it. I felt like the 86 series was the best bang for the buck with what I was wanting to do. Y'all have a good day. I'll see you next time.